Welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. Bonsoir, Adrien. Ça va? Okay, and we've got some interesting bullshit to look at today. Once I get my windows where I need them to. We've got, let's see, we've got some Ben Shapiro with the arch ghoul Douglas Murray on why American isolationism does not work. Then we've got a video that was actually suggested by a viewer in YouTube comments called Heated Debate on Kamala's Liz Cheney strategy. That's secular talk, people we haven't actually seen here before. And then this showed up in my YouTube Rex, and it looks like it could be a nice hot mess. Apparently, serial harasser and suspended Columbia University professor, arch-racist asshole Shai Davidai has his own channel, and he's interviewing Mayim Bialik, which some will remember from Blossom, and more recently from just being an absolute pro-Israel ghoul. From Big Bang Theory to Big Bold Zionist, Mayim Bialik. Hey Badger, how you doing? And then we've got some Muppet, we've got Superman, and the spiritual war within communism. Air quotes provided in the original. What's everybody thinking? Also, I don't know if you heard, but weird. The words throw and helicopter apparently get censored in the chat. Hey, Riveroon. I'd actually just heard this on the radio on my way back from the shops earlier, but Israel has launched their third attack now on Iran, and apparently they are using some footage from a 2021 refinery fire in Tehran in order to make it look like an impressive success and show the people at home what wonderful, invincible, big dick, not really particularly good military people they are. Oh, probably someplace in here. But the word that I've seen from Iran is that they intercepted all of the drones that had been sent over, or missiles, or whatever it was. And there have been people doing live streams from rooftops in Tehran, just trying to see, to stream the attack as it came in, but increasingly just to say, where the hell is this attack? We were promised an attack, and just clowning on them. That's the last I've seen, so hopefully that means it was indeed a damn squib and they're just going to leave it at that and say it was some sort of face-saving thing. So what does everyone think? The Muppet, Shai Davidai, Ben Shapiro, and Douglas Murray on American isolationism. Any particular preferences there? Yeah, that was an utter classic when he found out that the people whose entire politics is anti-communism don't think highly of even fake communists. Yes, I'm kind of curious about that too. I think we'll start out with that. We'll see what that's going to be like. Okay, well, we're going to start out with Shai Davidai and Blossom, the evil years. Like, apparently Blossom is so fucking old that they didn't even think to mention it. They just mentioned Big Bang Theory.
Dead Palestinian child is...
I need to be able to actually hear what she's saying, and I cannot. Okay.
One dead Palestinian child is too many. I get that.
Oh, I think somebody likes big butts and she cannot lie, and if you look at her, let me make sure you can actually see this, chat. Look at that necklace. She's under the Star of David. She's got a map of Palestine, and I say, which includes, which is supposed to be a map of Israel, and it includes the West Bank, it includes the Gaza Strip, and it includes the occupied Syrian Golan Heights. So, just, just getting us started off.
I do not want war in my name.
Okay, that's starting off good. What's gonna happen next?
And yet, here we are.
Okay, so not so much a but, and like, what do you mean? And yet here we are. Like, did you think, former star of Blossom, that that your opinion of, like, not apparently wanting dead Palestinian children or war, that was going to decide the matter, and so you're surprised, and yet here we are.
Flag was hoisted before the world.
What does it mean, fight back? We have a long fight ahead of us.
Here I am.
Here we are.
Here I am. Here I am with Shai Davidai.
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing this. I don't know if you... Oh, that's right. Turn the volume down. That's why. Now I'm going to have to turn the other volume down or it's going to just blow up my speaker. A Jewish civil rights podcast. Shut the fuck up. No creo que se trate de la cantidad de palabras, sino el contexto en que esas palabras se encuentren.
So I'm really excited for my next guest. She is an actor, a neuroscientist.
She hasn't acted in a while. It's been not quite as long as it's been since cultural Christian Richard Dawkins last did any science. But it's been a while since I remember her acting. I guess we're going to see her acting here.
An author, a staunch, proud Zionist. Most people are...
So, a woman that he won't harass, I'm guessing.
people know her from The Big Bang Theory. I might be aging myself, but in the 1990s in Israeli TV, when we only had a few channels, Blossom was one of those shows.
Fuck you, you don't get to share cultural references with me.
Were on rerun every single day. So that's where I got to know you or your work. And here I am with my...
Here you are, a remarkably shitty person who's going to... Because she turns out to be very shitty as well.
I am Bialik.
Everyone here in this
Thank you
okay
so much.
chat?
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to, honestly, to get to talk to you. You've been a huge...
It already says something. When it's an honor to talk to Shai Davidai, you know, people take out restraining orders to avoid having to talk to Shai Davidai.
Component of so many of our lives, you know, since October 7th. So I'm really honored to get to talk to you.
So I've been really waiting for this conversation because we've never met, and there's something I need to tell you.
I am required to stay within 6,000 feet, distance greater than 6,000 feet from any woman.
I spoke up on Columbia's campus with that video, and you were an instrumental part of that video.
Yeah, he spoke up. That's an interesting way of putting it.
Going viral.
Like, this... I don't know if it can go south. I mean, it's already started south. It's like the fucking South Pole already.
I did not have an Instagram account. Yet you somehow got that video and posted it on your social media on Instagram with, I think, about 5 million followers. And that gave that video such huge exposure, which then led to the snowball of...
So it's her fault that we've heard of this guy, is what I'm getting.
In a way, this conversation would not have happened if you
So the world would have been better, is what you're saying.
hadn't done that. So I don't know if I want to thank you.
Jewish
for
civil rights
making this happen,
podcast,
or
my ass.
Accuse you of ruining my personal life, but you were very instrumental. So thank you, Mayim.
Yeah, see, I mean, a classic abuser move right there. Like, see, he said a bunch of racist stuff and harassed a bunch of people and threatened a bunch of people, but it's fucking Mayim Bialik's fault. Like, I think you might have had a role that you played there. I think at some point there might have been a choice you made.
I appreciate that. Like, אני מרגישה, like, that's very, it makes me very emotional because it's the worst thing to have to be united on, you know?
Oh, I agree. I agree. Supporting Zionism is the worst thing to be united on. It's why you shouldn't do it. Because it sucks shit. You could just not be united on that, and you would suck, like, I don't know if I'd say 100% less shit, because she said some shitty things that were totally non-Zionist shitty things, but a significant percentage of less of the sucking of the shit if you weren't united on that.
Have this situation in our lives, but you know, this is one of those times. I mean, I had no idea about that. It just makes me very emotional because, you know, your voice was so important to so many of us, and I just felt like, you know, you
I'm puking, right? Yeah.
You said, it's not just what you said, it's how you said it. And
yeah, I know. That's what made me feel like puking.
For so long, we've had to be so measured and so this and be careful. And
oh yeah, I know. That's what you know about, like, Zionist propaganda. They're so measured.
Offend and this, that, and I think that's what struck me. It wasn't just the words; it was the execution and the passion, and this called for that. So
execution's a bit of an odd word to be using in the context of two people cheering on a genocide, I have to say. I might have used a different word.
But I keep telling people...
Strange connection.
I keep telling people, like, a voice is nothing if it's not amplified. Like, I can say whatever I want, however I want to say it. But if 15 million people hadn't seen it, and they saw it, the reason they saw it...
You realize if 15 million people hadn't seen it, you would not be famous for being a piece of shit. Like, the only reason I know this guy was a piece of shit, like, is precisely because I saw that racist-ass video.
Because millions of others have shared it. Then that...
Yeah,
voice
don't read the
was
quote
just
tweets.
Lost in the ether.
How many of those millions shared it with the comment, fuck this guy, really?
And, honestly, I have no idea what the course is that we're going to talk about today, meaning like what we're going to get into, but...
Probably racism. I think you're going to be racist. That's...
there's so much conversation, especially at that time, about who's amplifying what and how. And, I don't have bots. I don't have Iran on my side.
No, you're only, God, you're such a voice in the wilderness. Because, it is so hard to get a fucking pro-Israel message out in the United States. Yeah, you've only got all of the media on side. You've got the entire political class. Even the ones who are, like, mildly critical of some of what, the Zionist regime does, they are still mostly on side. It is so hard to get a pro-Israel message out. Isn't it, chat? The struggle is real. Because you gotta... It's like how TERFs are being silenced in Britain, I hear. I know this because they're in all the newspapers and all the major TV channels talking about how silenced they are.
Helping me amplify messages. I'm literally one Jew. I'm one Zionist. I'm one human who, has chosen to integrate aspects of my personal and my public life. And, you are that intersection.
Yes, it's an intersection that should have had 4 stop signs on it, but it didn't, so it ended up being a huge car crash.
I'm only going to delve into that, but before that, I start every episode with a very simple yet hard-hitting question. Mayim Bialik, what kind of a Jew are you?
Oh God, this is gonna be bad. But it occurred to me, just a little fun fact. You may have heard that in Israel there's a very popular song called, the title translates as May Your Village Burn. It is being called the unofficial national anthem. There's a club mix of the fucking thing. People are dancing to it all over the country. And in Hebrew that is Sheyisaref lechem hakfar. And I realized the other day that actually May Your Regime Burn in Hebrew rhymes with that. And that is Sheyisaref lechem hamishtar. Sheyisaref lechem hamishtar. May your regime burn. Just actually, it's like Adria. It's it's not as out there a question as you'd think. What makes it fucked up is this context. Because actually, a lot of people don't realize there are all sorts of different sects, different Jewish sects. So when you talk about it, so you have like the Hasidim, the Charedim, you have conservative, reconstructionist, humanist, reform, and numerous subgenres in there as well. So it is a question that actually gets asked a fair bit. It isn't, but in this context, I feel like we're going to get some fucked up shit as an answer, but that's because it's two people who are entirely famous because they say fucked up shit. Well, no, Mayim Bialik is also famous because she was in a couple of sitcoms, but the reason that we still hear about her isn't to do with the sitcoms, it's because she says fucked up shit.
I think of sort of some of the nomenclature that's been placed on me, right? I'm that proud Zionist Jew. I'm that in-your-face Jew. But, if I'm, I don't know, so emotional. If I'm really to answer it, I'm like, I'm a mutt. I'm a conglomeration of thousands of years, and
What the fuck does that mean? I mean, you think it's distinctive that you have a background that goes back a long time? That's like all of humanity. If you live on this planet, that means at every point in human history and like the precursors to human history, you had relatives. All of our fucking histories go back tens of thousands of years, even if we have no way of knowing most of it. That's not a distinguishing feature.
I wear my Judaism on my face, meaning I am what people think of when they think of Jewish features.
Yeah, this is actually, I wouldn't have said... okay, I didn't realize that that's where she was going with that. And I wouldn't have said that. Like... I know what she's saying there, but... I wouldn't have said that. I thought she was going in the sense of... that she's what people think of as a Jew, because people stereotype Jews as all being Zionists, because Zionists conflate being Jewish with being a Zionist. But yeah, I would not have said that.
But also,
she has like typical Ashkenazi features.
My identity is everyone's, so it's almost like I'm that Jew that literally is. I'm in your living room. I'm the you cannot avoid.
No, you're in my fucking basement, and only temporarily so that I can roast you. You're not in my fucking living room.
Jew.
I'm that.
Hello, Raven G.
Avoid me Jew is great because for many.
Well, it must be. He must be like jealous of that since he's been ordered to avoid a lot of people.
Years.
Because of the harassment.
Jews in America have been those hiding Jews, those avoiding Jews, those change your last name Jews, those...
Oh, well, fuck you, man. Like, what was your... yeah, because, like, in Israel, there's no changing of the last names. Like, what was your Shai Davidai? What was your, like, fucking grandparents' names? I don't think it was Davidai.
Try not to stick out as Jews, and you kind of flip the script, right? For so many
yeah, and it's really unfortunate. Let me just say, being Jewish, this is exactly the stereotype that a lot of us are trying to get out from under, because it drives anti-Semitism,
and that people don't know they're Jewish.
He really does have the most horrifying 1,000-yard stare.
Not out of ill will, out of self-perseverance. They had to change their name, hide their identity, not keep Shabbat, not explain why they can't work on that specific day on Yom Kippur, right? And you're like, no, hey, I'm that Jew. And I'm a good actor.
And I think, yeah,
as can be seen from the fact that she gets so many acting jobs.
Yeah, and I think also, part of it, our identity as Jews, as a global community, is incredibly...
I mean, the idea that we are a global community is itself a little bit... it's Zionist bullshit, let's just put it that way. Because the thing is, Jewish people developed apart for thousands of years, for much longer than we ever were living together in a single place. Even if you accept, we've been in Europe for over 2,000 years, all over the Middle East and North Africa and South Asia, China even, all sorts of places. I mean, with all sorts of cultural and religious and linguistic and culinary and other differences, and very little contact with each other. So the idea that there's a global community is itself kind of nonsense.
diverse.
I mean, unless you're specifically talking about like European Jews, Central European Jews especially, there you can kind of say, yeah, I mean, like I run into my culture in all sorts of places, just the most random places, and you find it in basically very similar versions to the way you find it in the places you've been. But that isn't, like, that's one small, one fractal.
And, many people think of the Ashkenazi Jew, right? Many people think of the Woody Allen Jew. I grew up.
Oh, no! Fuck that! Like, and please don't say the Alan Dershowitz Jew too. Like, could we please? I mean, what's next? You got like, can you please like not associate us with fucking sex pests?
Where that was being Jewish. We were all versions of Woody Allen.
Fuck
and
that!
I went to Israel.
I wasn't.
And I said, "What is happening here? We are dark skinned and swarthy. We are."
What do you mean we? You mean you found that there were non-European Jews, and like, what the fuck? Where's we come in here? Just because there are just like, what does that even mean?
Muscular. We have flowing black hair.
Not you and I, but
No, not you and I. But we are Ethiopian Jews.
No, you aren't.
Jews from
and Israel treated Ethiopian Jews like shit. Like, including the non-consensual sterilization thing of Ethiopian Jewish women. Like, what do you mean we are? Like, even now, Ethiopian Jews, like, Israel doesn't like them. They don't like... Israel treats black Jews in general like shit. A lot of them aren't even allowed into the country.
Of the world. We are Mizrahi Jews. We are... I mean, we look like all sorts of things. And yet, in Hollywood and in America... There's still this notion of, like, are you passing? So people love to say, I think Jewish women are attractive. Natalie Portman, Scarlett Johansson, and they name women who, of course, look Jewish because anyone can look Jewish.
We're really getting into some...
But when people say, does she look Jewish? Like this.
Like, first of all, I mean, it's so weird to see her saying that because I would never have said that. Like, literally the only reason I ever thought that might be her background is her name.
That's what we're talking about, And so for me, that's kind of why,
Mike, can you, because not everyone will be one.
I mean, they were farmers. She's just doing that stereotyping. Actually... In Tsarist Russia, they overwhelmingly, the ones who were farmers were living in what was called the Pale of Settlement, because it was the only place Jews were allowed to live. And Yiddish was the main language there. They also tended to be very religious. In the cities is where you found, actually, the less religious members of the Jewish community, but there weren't that many cities in Tsarist Russia where Jews were actually allowed to live. Like, there was Odessa, which was part of Tsarist Russia at the time, where Jews had like a special concession and has always been considered a very, like, kind of a Jewish capital on the Black Sea. But it wasn't, you didn't have in the Tsarist period a whole lot of non from Jews in the agricultural regions who were primarily speaking Russian. I mean, this is good. This is getting very. It's like she's gonna break out the fucking calipers.
Watching this, and obviously everyone knows what you look like. But for someone listening in, when you point to your face and say like this, like what is it? What are the features that you are saying that is my Jewishness?
I mean, and again, I'd like to repeat,
Like, why are we on this?
Jews look like all sorts of things.
Yes, thank you. But you then maybe just acknowledge that and move on, because this is actually low-key fucking creepy.
If you've been to Israel, if you've been part of a Persian Jewish community or an Israeli Jewish community, you see, we look like all sorts of things. But for a lot of people in America, this stereotype of the Semitic features. I have a prominent nose. I have a prominent chin. Like, I got two sets of features that are prominent, right?
Lots of people do.
So I wear glasses, but I actually do. I was blonde. I have blue eyes. I'm fair.
Yeah, I mean, like, God, this is... Oh, Christ. Yeah, like, what's the point of this? I mean, there may have been some who didn't practice, but the language, if you were living in those communities and you didn't speak Yiddish, you would not be able to converse with people because that was the language. Like, to the extent that pretty much all of the different communist groups, all of them, in order to, like, engage Jewish people, since, they all were trying to attract Jewish members. They created, like, Yiddish party organs and things. Sí, super, da vergüenza ajena esta wea.
I tend to be more olivey, which is my dad's Ukrainian side. But what I am is I'm Hungarian, I'm Polish, and I'm Ukrainian, and I'm an intersection of the Holocaust, tearing people from their homes and throwing them on the shores of Manhattan and seeing what happened. And what happened is people meet in night school and they meet at Jewish dances. So I'm a conglomeration of all those things. And I have, a lot of people would describe me as having a Jewish body type. I'm Zaftig.
Zaftig, okay, that is Yiddish for curvy. That's what it means. That isn't a Jewish body type. It is a body type there's a word for in Yiddish. And guess what? There's a word for every body type in Yiddish because it's a language and they have to, there are words for things in languages. Like, God, this is,
I'm busty, and, I'm not...
Oh, wow, Raven G. Okay, do you remember a show from the 90s called Blossom? Or more, yeah, Zaftig it's thick, with 2 C's. Or more recently, The Big Bang Theory. She was in both of those. It's Mayim Bialik, who has decided to sort of take a break from acting. First, to say some really sort of shitty things about Me Too. And now to, like, join in saying shitty things about Palestinians while they're being genocided.
Super tall. I do have some legs on me, but
what the fuck is this? Yes, wow, she has a full set of extremities, chat. That's so enlightening.
There's a lot about me that my kid once said I was auditioning.
Well, she was in Big Bang Theory.
And one of my kids was like, "Oh, is the character Jewish?" And my younger one said, "Well, you're playing it. It has to be." Like, there was no question. And part of that is, like, that's my Ima, right? My Ima is Jewish, and she plays parts that are Jewish. But it was
Ima is Hebrew for mother.
more just like, I think because of some of my, distinctive features, I think there's definitely a thing about that. And, I'll meet Jews, and we definitely, I look like other Jews with prominent features.
Like, she talks about this, like, I mean, the way she keeps on using this prominent features, like, she doesn't... I mean, first of all, this is, like, creeping me out. I am low-key cringing out of my head at the moment, at this fucking conversation. I did not think that this was what we're going to be talking about, but then it's Zionists talking with Zionists. So, of course, we're gonna be doing the skull measuring. Of course we're gonna be doing the fucking skull measuring. Maybe she's got one of those, like, sets of hair color samples that they used to do race science in Nazi Germany that she's gonna break out so she can show us where she is on that or something. Ugh.
My partner,
Yuck.
we joke that we look more like cousins.
Yes, we're discussing how she has legs and they are Jewish. Yeah, this is creepy as hell. Okay, we are looking at Shai Davidai, who is a shithead. He's specifically a shithead based at, suspended now from Columbia University for serial racist harassment of Palestinian students and people who support Palestinians. And he has a fucking YouTube channel where he interviews other shitheads. And today it's Mayim Bialik, and so far they're just talking. She's telling us about how she has extremities and features, and they're doing some race science, and I did not know that this was where... I don't watch this stuff in advance. If you're here for the first time and you're thinking I might be playing up my... I'm not. I had no idea that this... I thought they were going to be talking about... I'm sure they're going to get into Palestine at some point. But I didn't think that they were going to be talking about this for this fucking long.
Then a happy couple.
But happy couple. Has that ever been a hindrance in your career?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was 14 when Blossom came out, and I will never forget the first review I read. It was a writer.
And that's usually who writes reviews.
I wouldn't even if I remembered his name. But he described how distracting it was. My face. Described that
What the fuck is that? First of all, that's... Okay, let me just say, fucked up thing to say about a 14-year-old who's making her television debut. And second of all, what is he talking about? Her face is undistracting. It's not... I mean... It's a face. It's not particularly one thing or the other. It's just a face.
Shaped face, which some of us just call heart-shaped. And it said I have a mismatched face of features. I was 14 years old.
That's fucked up.
The first thing I thought was, I am mismatched because I'm Hungarian, and I'm Polish, and I'm
God.
Jewish.
Yeah, this is... this is literally the theme of a fucking Nazi children's book. The idea that somehow this sort of mixing would lead to, features just being, adopted and mixed one-to-one or something like that. Again, how long are we going to be doing this?
Evidence of that,
But that seems... Okay, so... We could be having a conversation right now that has nothing to do with Jewish civil rights, has nothing to do with...
You are having that conversation right now. In fact, I have a feeling you're going to be having a conversation that's nothing to do with Jewish civil rights the whole time, because, that's not what you're about. I'm going to move ahead.
Because of your desire to delegitimize...
Yeah, she did.
...as a Jew or a Zionist.
But when you called out in this story, you basically said, I don't have to choose between being a Zionist, meaning a Jew who refuses to denounce her identity.
Oh, fuck you, no. If anything, Zionists are self-hating Jews. Zionism, what's fucked up about this, and he knows this perfectly well, she's sucking up to him, because there's this inferiority complex that some, non-Israeli Jewish Zionists have towards Israeli Jewish Zionists because of this whole the new Jew thing. They have this whole idea, and you hear it all over all their cultural shit about how they're better than us. We're all weak and effeminate and degenerate because we're living in the diaspora, the galut. And they're all rugged and muscular and don't think too much about things because they're too busy doing racism, mostly. And she's totally feeding into that bullshit. But, Zionism is all about shitting all over like Jewish history, Jewish culture, especially non-European Jewish culture, but even European Jewish culture. Because the idea is that we're supposed to be sort of ashamed of the cultures that developed in like 2,000 odd years in the various places that we've lived. Like that's something that we should erase and forget about and something. So like the idea that Zionism is to like Jewish heritage and identity what let me see if I can work on this a second. I wasn't expecting to have to come up with an analogy, but okay, I think I got it. What the band Hanson is to hardcore punk,
and being a feminist, and
well, yeah. I mean, if we define feminism to include all of the horrible people who have claimed the mantle of feminism, as opposed to like having some sort of minimum standards that, like, say, actually fighting for all women and especially the most marginalized and oppressed women and the most exploited women or something like that, yeah, okay. Then there's no contradiction because they're all sorts of shitty ass feminists. I mean, they're fucking TERFs. If we accept that TERFs are legitimately feminists, which I don't, but if we do, then I mean, there's no reason like Zionists or like just neo-Nazis couldn't also be considered legitimately feminist, because at that point feminism means nothing.
I think that's the problem, that when they portray Zionism is opposed to feminism. Zionism is...
Well, yes, because of the way it shits all over Palestinian women.
Racism. Zionism...
Well, it is racism.
Is that they are forcing people to choose.
Yep.
Yes, you do have to choose. You do have to choose between a shitty reactionary racist ideology and... thing and any kind of like progressive, like just human decency. You do have to choose. You absolutely have to choose.
Between like, do I stand with this identity of mine or that identity of mine?
Yeah, and if one of your identities is like just fucking racism, maybe just get rid of that identity. Maybe that's an identity you don't need. Maybe there's a better identity out there that you could uncover, like that you could unlock by getting rid of like a commitment to just being really racist.
Well, and it's a well calculated approach, because if given the choice, and this is actually one of the original conversations I started having in the public arena regarding Zionism, if given the choice, do you want to be a good person or do you want to be this term, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, given the choice between an ideology that sucks shit and something that doesn't, like, people prefer to associate themselves with things that they think don't suck shit. Yeah, I mean, given the choice, although, I mean, let's see, there's this whole victim complex in the Zionist movement, as if they have it so fucking rough. Because, you know, some people are pointing out that they're really racist, and then they go and like fucking cry about it on CNN or something like that. And neo-Nazis then go and beat up the people that they're complaining about. And cops. I mean, there's overlap between those groups. You can kind of take it as read that one means the other a bit. But, yeah. It's good that people are having to choose. They should have had to choose a long time ago. It's good. That means that people are starting to realize what a shitball ideology it is and moving away from it.
Right? That's kind of what it is.
No.
And, you know, do you want to be a person who believes in the rights of black people, or do you want to be a Zionist, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Do you want to be an anti-racist, or do you want to be, adhere to an explicitly racist ideology? And yeah, I mean, the choice is obvious, because one of those sucks shit and the other one is just basic human decency.
And that kind of, makes your head start to rattle. Like,
Right,
what do
because
you
It should.
You're getting
It
a
absolutely
false dichotomy,
should.
And
It is absolutely a false dichotomy. And
No, it
the
isn't.
first time that I chose to speak up about Zionism and introduce the millions of people that I can reach with the definition of Zionism as the belief in the Jewish people's right to an autonomous state in our homeland of Israel.
Yeah,
I
which
used the term because I was being attacked.
yeah, I mean, and there she's done an anti-Semitism there, because the thing is that buys into this whole idea, and Zionism explicitly buys into this idea that Jews are a foreign body in the countries that we're from, in the places that we've lived for sometimes hundreds or even thousands of fucking years. That we're a foreign body. So the minute you start to talk about, like, the right to, like, leaving aside, before we even get to the part where that's somebody else's homeland, who've been living there for a very long time and have every right to continue doing so, and to say that maybe they don't want people to, like, colonize them and build their fake-ass homeland there. But before we even get to that, that's already anti-Semitic, what she just said.
For being a Zionist. People protested a talk that I gave.
Good!
In the middle of the Midwest. It was not a talk about Judaism. Wasn't even hosted by the Hillel.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't a talk about Judaism, because you very clearly should not be talking about the subject, because you can't seem to talk about it without getting out your fucking calibers and measuring skulls.
I was speaking at a university, and in the middle of my talk, a group shows
What
up.
were you talking about? You said you weren't talking about Judaism, and it wasn't Hillel. Like, what were you talking about?
do you remember what you were speaking about?
Yeah, it was like a talk about like my academic history, being a child actor and how I went on to get a PhD in neuroscience. It was like a generic. Mayim Bialik gets paid to come speak to university students. It's fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, and people do have a right to object to racists getting, like, especially, like, professional racists. People who have decided that this is going to be their thing, getting paid to speak at their universities. People do have a right to be a bit pissed off about that.
And everybody comes. We don't even charge for tickets. Have a great time. 1,000 people in the audience.
Sounds very objectionable.
It was very... well, I think we all know what was objectionable, right? So,
Well, yeah, it's the racism. It's the calipers and the skull measuring and all the fucked up shit that you say.
So
But you know what?
I mean, it probably was. I seem to remember her saying, hang on a second, I want to just be sure. Mayim Bialik, me too. So I seem to remember her saying something very shitty about that. Here we go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she said some victim-blaming shit about Me Too and Harvey Weinstein and all that shit. So, I mean, it could also have been about that, depending on when we're talking about, because a lot of people were pissed off about the shitty thing she said about that.
Well, if they don't know, spell it out. What was objectionable?
yeah, so a group came in during the talk and started protesting and screaming.
What did they
And
say?
I saw the flyers afterwards that were handed out to announce that there was going to be a meeting and a protest of me. It said Mayim Bialik is a Zionist.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's a thing that sucks. Maybe try not being a thing that sucks.
And I looked at the flyer. This was several years ago. I looked at the flyer and I thought, well, this is strange. Since when do you call a protest for someone believing that Israel has a right to exist?
Since that's a fucking racist thing to believe. Like, I mean, they talk about this. This is a thing like Zionists do, where it'll be like they will say this as if it's just the most reasonable thing ever. Israel has a right to exist. First of all, let's leave aside international law does not have this concept of states having a right to exist, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. But beyond that, what exactly was involved in Israel existing? Like, I mean, the ethnic cleansing, the invasion, Bialik genocide, and an apartheid system. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that they would also have been protesting if somebody was saying that apartheid South Africa had a right to exist.
Seems crazy.
And they should.
And when I saw what was happening online, I saw that fans of mine were starting to post, because these groups started infiltrating my social media.
Infiltrating.
And fans of mine were saying...
I mean, I love that. They couldn't possibly be that her fans included people who did not realize that she had these shitty views. You know, that it could very well be, you know, people who know her from Blossom and, you know, enjoyed her in Big Bang Theory or whatever, and had no idea of the shitty things that she has to say when she's asked for opinions. But no, it's got to be a conspiracy. Her fans were infiltrated, because her fans couldn't possibly have a problem with her being racist. And
Mayim Bialik is a wonderful person. She would never be a Zionist. And I thought, what? That's like a record scratch.
Yeah, and it ought to lead you to give some thought to that. Okay, yeah, because that isn't your fans being infiltrated, it's your fans being appalled.
And that's when I realized that the nomenclature surrounding my identity had been hijacked. And I'm not going to say by who. I mean, I think we all know kind of a larger picture of what's happening several years later. I started realizing...
No, dude, tell us by who. By who?
Unassuming, uneducated people are thinking that the word Zionism means fascist, it means Nazi, it means hater.
Yes, I mean, it means those things.
It was being used interchangeably with things that Zionism does not mean. So,
well, I mean, can you give an example of that? Because so far you've given examples of things that at the very least you could say Zionism is strongly associated with, including collaborating with Nazis and other genocidal anti-Semites, including right now. I mean, like the head of the fucking Anti-Defamation League. I mean, he sucks up to neo-Nazis, including the big one who runs Twitter into the ground. You know, I mean, you have like Zionists claiming that support for the Palestinians is a Jewish conspiracy. That's how fucking anti-Semitic this movement is. And that's why you have to remember, I mean, she's doing this thing that a lot of people do, including people who really ought to know better, where they equate being Jewish with being Zionist to a certain... when the reality is... there are between 14 and 15 million Jews on the planet. And not all of us, by any stretch of the imagination, are Zionists. In fact, the number of Jews who are Zionists, who aren't Zionists, has been fairly steadily growing, especially in younger generations. There are well over 100 million Zionists, according to polling, in the United States alone. The majority of Zionists are anti-Semitic as fuck, genocidal, white supremacist Christians. That's the Zionist movement. Jews are a fucking tiny minority in it.
So that was the first time that I said, hey everybody, it's come to my attention that a lot of people don't know what the definition of Zionism was. And I think back to that Mayim Bialik, I was very...
At least she was hoping they don't know what the definition of Zionism is, because if you know anything about the ideology, and its history, and its praxis, and what its like leading thinkers, them who have like streets and even towns named after them in Israel, if you know that, then Zionism is just disgusting.
I was very naive, because I thought if I explained it, and I said, hey, Zionism is just the belief that we have the right to exist, everybody get it?
No, it isn't that. In fact, it's the opposite of that, because if we have the right to people have the right to exist. But, I mean, the right to exist should meaningfully include the right to exist in the places we're from, and Zionism says we don't have that right, because we are a foreign body in the places we're from, and therefore we need to go and colonize Palestine and kick out the people who are from there, who Zionism treats as foreigners in their own homes. It's a shitball ideology.
I thought that would do it.
But I actually think that, in a way, it is naive, because what you and I refuse to accept is that they oppose
reality.
They oppose the belief that we have a right to exist as a community.
That's bullshit. But, I mean, I can understand how it probably it helps you sleep at night to make you think that that's what it's about. But no. See, it's not that. It's the idea that that Palestinians don't have a right to exist. That's the problem. Oh, okay, the title of this section is Anti-Zionism is Naive. That's cute.
Mayim Bialik as a Jew who will be a Jew and in her home, but once Mayim Bialik is of the Jewish people...
Which is already a fucking meaningless concept. If anything, there are Jewish peoples, plural.
She exists as a community, and that is opposable.
Yeah, what does it mean for a person to exist as a community?
Reveals is a darker, deeper truth that I was raised to hope was paranoia. My grandparents fled Eastern Europe during the pogroms leading up to the Holocaust.
Fun fact, the Zionist movement tried to make various deals with the people who were leading those pogroms. In fact, the extremely pro-Israel government in Ukraine has built monuments to the people leading those pogroms.
They lost their entire families. And I was raised resisting that they didn't like us, right? That happened then. It's not going to happen again. Never again, right? We even hashtagged it.
Wow, they even hashtagged it. Well, the trouble is, when you have that whole never again thing, a lot of people, perhaps naively, perhaps we anti-Zionists are naive in thinking that if you say never again and then you go and do it again, that there's something wrong with that.
So what I didn't want to understand, which, I still, when I was at UCLA also, I was part of a lot of intellectual conversations that we had with the Muslim Student Association, that we had with the African Student Union, that we had with, the Armenian organization, the Mexican Chicano organization. We were part of a lot of conversations about where do the Jews belong that previously had never been an issue.
Yeah, well, it's because it's not about the Jews. It's about the Zionist movement. Like, seriously. Zionism is the one saying that Jews do not belong in most places Jews are. Because the other thing, I was citing some numbers, but another bit of numerical information that's important here is most Jews don't live in Israel. Most Jews don't intend to live in Israel, and a whole lot of Jews have been leaving Israel in recent years. Especially, anyone even, mildly kind of liberal, progressive leaning, because there is so much fascist shit going on there, it is not safe to even be just a fucking milquetoast lib.
And I was at UCLA in the late 90s, and it was the first that we were seeing of Zionism as racism.
The first? I mean, I guess in the U.S., if you grew up, she's about my age, I guess, it would be the first time you'd have heard that in the U.S., but Zionism as racism is a critique that certainly existed well before that. It just didn't really... it was just marginalized.
What I knew was that, and like Sam Harris, who was a colleague of mine at UCLA, what Sam Harris has talked about is there was still an intellectual academic argument that I was willing to engage in about the borders of the definitions of Zionism as distinct from the Jewish people. And all of that changed on one day. And that day was October 7th.
Ew, that is a weird time for it to change, actually. Especially because there are probably more Jewish people in the U.S. than there have been since, before 1967, who are drawing a very clear boundary there and saying, no, that shit ain't us. We're doing us. They're doing them with their shithead ideology.
And there is no longer confusion for me about what the anti-Zionism movement is. There's no longer confusion based on the reactions that occurred, based on what you articulated. There's no more. I'm not confused.
It is so cute to hear her saying that he articulated anything. He just sort of screamed racist abuse at people.
But what I think a lot of people still are, Jews and many non-Jews who are listening, and hopefully more will be listening. Walk me through that thought process. Like, what was the confusion? What did you see on October 7th? What is the clarity now?
Yeah, I mean, and let's remember, on October 7th, most people didn't see shit. There was very little until days later. I mean, what most people saw on October 7th, in the rest of the world, was that iconic photo of the ghetto fence coming down, some footage of the defeat of the Gaza division of the Israeli army, and those paragliders. And, I mean, within a day or so, there was some footage of, Qassam fighters who had ended up in people's houses and who were, reassuring them that they weren't going to be harmed. And, in one case, writing on the wall, Qassam does not kill children. Very clearly also implying, maybe, unlike certain parties we might mention.
So the confusion for me, and again, I'm speaking as a layperson, I have a minor in Hebrew and Jewish studies, and I had to study, a lot about the history of Israel, and
not
also,
enough, clearly.
Most of my family that exists is in Israel. So I've also grown up with family. I have family that live in the Shachim, that live deep in the West Bank. They are religious Zionists.
So they're fucking illegal settlers. They're the people who like to chuck rocks at Palestinian kids on their way to school and douse some olive groves with petrol and stuff. Wonderful people, your family. Fuck them.
And I have family that are secular kibbutzniks. I've got everybody in between, and they're all over the country. So, I've also added a lot of information, meaning besides what I studied academically and what we were told in my synagogue, which honestly was not the whole story, right? So for me, once I learned more about the years leading up to 1947, in particular in 1948, what I understood is that there was a large conversation that many Jews in America in particular had been left out of about the formation of the Jewish state and what it meant for the Arab population.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Okay, chat, what do you think she's about to say about what it meant for the Arab population? I mean, it already sounds like she's about to deny that there are Palestinians.
That's just true. So,
yeah, the real victims were American Jews who were left out of the country. Not the 750,000 Palestinians who were expelled from their homes. Not the roughly let me see, a million or so Palestinians who refused to leave their homes and had to live under military rule until 1965. No, the real crime is that there were some American Jews who were apparently left out of a conversation.
Willing to learn about that. I was learning to engage on that. In the same ways that...
Learn what?
We as a Jewish population acknowledged and understood the Armenian genocide, right? And at UCLA we would do events with that community to show that we...
It's fun fact, a lot of Zionist organizations refuse to acknowledge the Armenian genocide specifically because they like claimed that Jews had some sort of a patent on the concept of being genocided.
I always was trying to understand, quote, the other side. And it's not, I don't like to think of it as sides. It's trying to understand our cousins, right?
Yeah.
The people who, according to, our liturgy, are our cousins.
Yes.
We're all children of Abraham, right? And this isn't a religious conversation, but I'm saying,
Okay, but what, like, you seem to be really kind of avoiding the turd in the punch bowl, and it's kind of weird because, like, the turd to punch ratio in this particular bowl is kind of high. I mean, it's really, it's like, it's more that there's somebody spilled punch in the shite bowl.
No, I mean, historically, there's a relationship there. It's not a warm relationship, but there's a relationship nonetheless.
Oh, actually, it was a pretty warm relationship until Zionism showed up. Like, Jews, Christians, and Muslims were actually living together quite peacefully in Palestine for a very, very long time until Zionists showed up, and that's why Palestinian Jews were not happy when Zionists showed up, because it fucked up their relationships with their, like, Muslim and Christian neighbors.
But also, I've spent time in Ramla. I've spent time in parts of Israel where, most of the community was Arab. And I went into those shops. I ate in those restaurants. I ate...
Oh, wow. She let them serve her food.
Unbelievable hummus that rivaled my favorite hummus.
Hummus.
In Jerusalem, right?
I mean, it's so weird, this thing that, like, Zionists it's so weird in the first place that... Israelis go out of their way to mispronounce the letter ha. Because this Hebrew has the sound. It's ha, hummus, Hamas, Beit Hanun. It's not Beit Hanun. But for some, she, as a native English speaker, definitely has the sound. And yet she insists on saying hummus, which, why?
Those
Make it make sense.
That have had to exist, and in many cases, have existed. So for me, before October 7th, there was still somewhat in the back of my mind of okay, there may be people who are threading this needle of Zionism as, the collective, what is referred to as the occupation, right? And I'm thinking, gosh.
Well, it is, because it is an occupation.
When I say I'm a Zionist, I don't mean I believe in occupying people. I don't.
You do, though. I mean, when you say that regime that you like so much has a right to exist, you're talking about something that is occupying people. You were just talking about how you allowed them to serve you snacks a second ago and mispronouncing their food.
I don't mean apartheid. I don't mean all those things. And that's not even saying that I agree with those assessments, but I was willing to engage.
Well, except that here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you agree with those assessments or not. It simply doesn't matter, because that's what's going on. That exists independently of whether Mayim Bialik wants to acknowledge it. And when she is standing this regime, those are the things she's standing. She's just uncomfortable with the words for the things that she likes. It's like that time on the Tim Pool cast where Tim Pool got freaked out because it turned out that there's a word for people who specifically don't like immigrants, nativism. And he's like, that's an ism all of a sudden? Motherfuckers just don't like that there are words to describe the things they like.
That there is this threading of the needle, and I want to learn what I can learn so that I better understand your pain, and so that we can build something together.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, their pain has a lot to do with the state that you're such a fan of. Their pain is very much caused by the ideology that you're so proud of espousing. Like, the reason that in those towns that she was talking about that are majority Palestinian, the reason that everybody's so crammed together in those towns and often ends up leaving is because if you're a Palestinian citizen of Israel, you can't get planning permission for shit. They will not allow what, urban planners call natural growth. There's it is almost unheard of for Palestinians, including Palestinian citizens of Israel, to be granted planning permission just to expand their towns and villages and cities to accommodate growing populations. Like, their pain that you're talking about is literally the regime you like.
I'm not an Israeli citizen, but I am part of a global Jewish community, and I've always felt very, very connected.
God, can we excommunicate her?
And a very meaningful connection to Israel. I also know that if I'm not a voting person, I should probably shut my mouth when it comes to a lot of things, and I'm glad that my family kind of helps me reason that out. But October...
Yeah, you really should shut your mouth about a lot of things.
I came to realize, even before we went into Gaza...
We went into, being she's a U.S. citizen, Israel and the U.S. are basically indistinguishable. Israel is just like, you remember I had said a while ago, maybe I didn't say it on stream, but I've posted it, that a glinner is just the term for the collective single shared genital of all TERFs. Well, Israel is Washington's glinner. That's all it is. It's just an appendage.
Is that...
What's with this facial expression? He is like constantly shocked Pikachu.
The word Zionist
Gute Nacht.
can be replaced with Jew.
No, it can't. No, it fucking can't. Don't do that. Zionists do that. Anti-Semites do that. And it just makes life very difficult for Jewish people because that means that they smear all their shit all over us. And a lot of us have spent a lot of time trying to correct the perception that everything that Israel does is something that we're all doing. Because Israel spends so much time, every time they fucking bomb a hospital, they say it's on behalf of all of us, and it's like, all of us who, like, stand for anything remotely decent are like, no, fuck that, we're nothing to do with that, though, fuck, just stop doing that, and certainly stop claiming that you're doing it for us.
By pretty much every single organization I have seen use that term in this context. And when they say, and I'm using they, whoever the they is, when they say, we don't want Zionists here, I no longer am pretending that means anything but, we don't want Jews here.
Yeah, which is such bullshit, because everybody who is saying that, with the exception of just literal neo-Nazis, who do, much like Zionists do, use Zionist, some of them think they're being clever, and using Zionist when they actually mean Jew, and they're using it to make sort of a reference to the protocols of the Elders of Zion and all that bullshit. But, like, the organizations, overwhelmingly, that would have an objection to Zionists being there, have tons of Jews in them. It's just, like, Jews who don't like Zionism, because there are ever more of us. You look at the people, like, 30 and under in the Jewish population, and Zionism is not very popular at all.
But they will say, and I completely disagree, but an anti-Zionist would say, we have Jews here.
Yes, because we do. We do.
It's your kind of Jews that we don't want.
Well, yeah, and okay, shut the fuck up, first of all, because this idea that Zionist is specifically a kind of Jew is already some anti-Semitic bullshit. Because, again, the overwhelming majority of Zionists are just white supremacist Christians whose whole idea is that Palestine should be this sort of Latter-day Theresienstadt where they herd all the Jews so they can kill us all and make the second coming happen.
Forget the fact that 95% of Jews are Zionists.
Oh, yeah, that figure. They love to use that. But, okay, let's just assume that we're true for a second. Let's just assume that actually is accurate. It doesn't fucking matter. At some, That's like saying, like an overwhelming number of white people have all sorts of racist ideas. That doesn't mean that no racists automatically means no white folks. It just means just not the... even if it is a majority. So, no, this is bullshit.
Forget the fact that 99.9% of Zionists are Jews.
That's total bullshit. Like, again, just in the U.S., there are more Zionists than there are Jews on the planet. This is an absolute lie that he's telling. The majority of... Christian Zionists are the absolute majority. Like, Jews are negligible in the movement because there's so many fucking white supremacist Christians in it.
Right? Just that mere correlation is a correlation that you and I as scientists would love to get in any research, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a correlation you just fucking made up by fucking with the data.
All of that. But they would say, no, we have Jews, right? Like, just like versus blacks for Trump, right? Versus...
yeah, no.
We have our Jews.
That's true.
So you can't replace the word Jews with Zionists. We're saying
you can't, though.
Zionists. It's the Z word, not the J word.
Yeah, and most Zionists aren't Jews. And Zionism sucks shit, even if most Zionists were Jews. Even if it were such a high ratio as he claims, which it absolutely isn't. That's just a lie. I mean, maybe he's just ignorant as fuck and does not realize how many Christian Zionists there are. But, yeah. The problem is still the shitty-ass ideology.
Right, so that variety of Jew is absolutely what it means. And the fact is, do I believe there's a place for Jews to say, we don't support what the Israeli government has done? Yes, there's a place for that. Do I believe that there's a place for Jews who say, not in my name? I don't want war in my name. Of course there's a place for that. Do I believe...
Oh, wow, that's so fucking generous of her.
There's a place for Jews who say, I believe that this is an occupation, this is apartheid.
It's not I believe. It literally is an occupation. It's not a fucking matter of belief. The occupation is there. The soldiers are there. We just had the International Court of Justice who also just ruled it's an illegal occupation and always was one.
Yes, there's room for everybody to believe all the things that they want.
People are allowed to...
Wow, I mean, that's so generous of her. You could believe all the things that they want as long as...
What?
I mean, that's
you said that, not me.
Yeah.
But the terms of engagement for being part of a larger community, I believe, ultimately will not favor Jews on that side.
Well, for now, although if you actually look at the younger generations, if you look at the people who are like my age and younger in the community, overwhelmingly you get people who would be cringing out of their gourd. They may still have like some liberal Zionist ideas and shit, but they're not really fans of what Israel's doing. They're very uncomfortable with every new thing they find out about the place. And yeah, I mean, the community is gradually moving on. And your best friends these days, Mayim and fucking Shai Davidai, are literal neo-Nazis.
Of the tent. Because the conditions for which you are accepted are very specific. And it means denouncing a specific aspect of global Jewish identity.
One that is not shared by all of us, and one that should be challenged because it sucks. Like, at one point, global German identity had a specific aspect that was quite widespread. I don't know if you could ever have said that it was like in the 90% range, but it was pretty high. That a lot of, like, every decent person in the world objected to. Does that mean we could not say no Nazis?
Which is Liot am Chofshi Be'artzenu, which is to be an autonomous, free nation in our land. It says nothing about...
Well, what is our land, though?
How many states? It says nothing about the treatment of Palestinians.
Well, except the fact that, you're declaring their land our land. Like, what about all the other places? We have, lots of homelands, actually. Most Jews don't even live in this land that you call our land. There were people already living there.
It is simply a definition. So I understand that there are Jews part of that movement, and again, that's completely fine. Like our tent is big enough for...
It's not your fucking tent. Fuck you. I don't... a tent that is big enough for this bullshit is not a tent that is worth being in. I mean, and this is, there's a lot of, useless discussion. You'll see people that, well, we should, try to change these Zionist institutions from the inside and get them to reject Zionism and stuff. He's like, no, fuck that. They don't represent us. They pretend to represent us, and we should be completely abandoning them and just ghosting the fuck out of them. We need, we should be building our own shit. Fuck them. Their real religion is U.S. imperialism anyway.
For all of that, I believe when it comes down to it, which many of us saw with Black Lives Matter, and many of us saw with the women's movement surrounding this, when the rubber hits the road, I do not believe you are welcome there. And I marched with a pussy hat.
Wow.
And I marched for Black Lives Matter. I was that Jew.
Wow. She give her all the credit. That's so pog. She did the bare minimum.
And I still believe in what I marched for. And it
yeah, which makes me wonder what you marched for. That you still believe it at the same time as you believe this fucked up ideology.
It's me that my Republican conservative Jewish friends said to me, serves you right. We knew you shouldn't support feminism. We knew you shouldn't support Black Lives Matter. And you know what? I don't believe that. I was raised by first-generation American civil rights activists who had sit-ins to allow black students into the public schools.
So what? Seriously, that's not how this works. You don't get to take credit for the fact that you did something decent, borderline decent once. You certainly don't get to, take credit for the fact that your parents did something decent once.
System of New York. I was raised by true liberals who could tolerate other people's opinions.
Ooh, wow. They could tolerate.
And it's okay to believe in peace over war.
100%. Which is such a meaningless thing to say. Literally everybody is pro-peace. Netanyahu is pro-peace. The problem comes when you actually ask people what peace means. Hitler was pro-peace. He wanted peace. Peace after achieving world domination and genocide. Then he was fine with having no war. The U.S. would love peace, in the sense of just complete U.S. world domination. Netanyahu would love peace as soon as he's exterminated all the Palestinians and maybe taken over a few neighboring countries. Which is not going to happen because, you have to have an army that can fight, and IDF stands for I don't fight. Peace is such a meaningless thing to say. You have to ask what it means.
% it's okay. I get it. For some people, one dead Palestinian child is too many. I get that.
Wait. Oh, wow. Wow, do you see, like, everybody who has been here since the beginning of this thing, you see what fucking Davidai did with that editing? If you go back to the very beginning, there's a clip. And what you hear her say is, one dead Palestinian child is too many. And that's all you hear. Now, hear what she just said.
It's over war. 100% it's okay. I get it. For some people, one dead Palestinian child is too many.
That's rather different than what he has her saying in the edited clip at the beginning. That is, like, how many is too many for you, Mayim? Like, we're into, like, the 20,000s at this point. Like, nothing is killing as many children as the U.S. and Israel right now. So, how many, since she's saying there are some people.
I get that.
Ooh, wow, you get that. You get that some people don't think Palestinian children should be murdered. She's such a big person.
I do not want war in my name. And yet, here we are.
So, I would say...
What do you mean, here we are? What does that fucking mean? But it's time. Yeah, for some people. He edited that out because when you leave that in, it sounds ghoulish as shit. But it is time to wrap up. And let me just thank everybody for joining in. And let me say, I don't know if you've been following the Inessa Armand translation project, but I have nearly completed the first English translation of all of her, the draft translation anyway, of all of her speeches and essays. Dropping the link where you can find all that in the chat. I am still trying to raise another about $4,400 to cover the cost of that and just kind of keep my head over water in kind of rough times. And so any support to that project is much, much appreciated. If you can't, you can't, and I understand that because times are rough all over. But if you can and you'd like to, it is very much appreciated. And will help me continue. I still have, like, all of her letters to translate. And some of those are very long and substantive. You can find the draft translations at that Patreon link. And if you'd like to drop me a little support for the project, thank you very much. If you are new to the stream and not yet in the Discord, let me just drop you the Discord link so that we can keep in touch in between streams. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a good night. And wow.